When it comes to Boston sports, we're fans just like you. 98.5 The Sports Hub.
I'm skeptical. I have no reason to want to get rid of Jaylen Brown, and I don't trust that Giannis will stay healthy enough to make it worthwhile when it matters. If someone could give me a guarantee that when May and June roll around in 2027, that he'll be in the lineup healthy, I might change my mind. I don't think anybody can give you that guarantee. I don't have any, and I have no compelling reason to want to dump Jaylen Brown. I just think I talked to him a little bit. Maybe Joe should have a little chat with him, or Brad. But other than that, no. I'm not crazy about this. This isn't the Giannis. His best days are behind him, I think, frankly.
Hanging by a moment. Yeah. 98.5 The Sports Hub. Sean Sylver here, you there, the people's champ, George Sepulveda behind the glass at the controls here, and we are at 617-779-0985 as we get things fired up here on a Saturday afternoon, the prelude to Father's Day, and it's fun to be back here on a Saturday working with George. It's been a minute since we've done this sort of thing, but we've planned this out thoroughly, and we are going to just bring you 3 hours of just constant body blows here between the 2001 era alt-rock hits that George is going to be dialing up. I love how he reads the room, right? He's with Leroy and Cerrone, and we get, like wheelhouse music for those guys. He comes on with me. Now, there's nothing say. Nobody came here saying that I would not get down to some Leroy and Cerrone, music. But I think he read the room. We're playing some sludgy guitar turn of the millennium hits here. Oh, man. And, we're off and running.
We're going to have a good time today.
We are going to have a good time today. We got a couple of esteemed guests joining us throughout the course of the program that we've lined up here. Around 20 past 3, it has been an interesting week in Boston radio history and also in Boston wrestling history. And where the two converge is what I want to explore a little bit. Jack Encarnacio of the Laps Fan Wrestling Podcast is going to jump on. If you're not familiar, if you like wrestling, old wrestling, the best wrestling, and you're not familiar with TLF and the work that Jack and JP do over at that podcast, you will get a little bit familiar today. Those guys go deep like Janet Jackson on 80s and 90s wrestling. And, interestingly, we've had a passing in the Boston radio industry. The godfather of sports radio, Eddie Andelman, passed earlier this week. And, you may know, you may not know, but Eddie, a big wrestling guy, and one of his last, I think, big interviews that he gave was with Jack and JP. So we're going to talk to Jack today, talk a little bit about, I think, another thing that deserves to be mentioned. I've already been tweeted about it. The Duke of Dorchester has also left this mortal coil this week. Pete Doherty. So we got some wrestling talk coming up at 3:20. 4 o'clock, Jackie Contreras going to join. She reports on the Boston Legacy for Musket Fire. She is up on all things soccer. I've been enjoying Jackie's coverage of the Legacy as a season ticket holder to the team this year. They're on a little bit of a break now as, the World Cup's going on. And I think it's a great opportunity to also talk the World's Game as well. And I know George has got some feelings on that too, because he has been into the World Cup. I have been into the World Cup. My 8-year-old son has been way into the World Cup. It's just been a blessing. We've been treated to some good soccer. We've been treated to some soccer here locally, and happy to talk about it with George, happy to talk about it with Jackie, happy to talk about it with you at 617-779-0985. But yeah, beautiful day out. It was interestingly kind of cool and breezy this morning, almost like you're on the coast of Maine, no matter where you were. It has turned into a full-fledged June afternoon where it is warm. temp controlled here in this radio studio as we bring it to you on 98.5 The Sports Hub. And you heard there at the top, obviously kind of, greeting us, the voice of Bob Ryan, who I'm going to take Bob Ryan. I'm going to roll with Bob Ryan. Just period on basketball. And, Bob has an era for sure. He started covering basketball back in the 1960s. He was there for the glory days of the Celtics. And, of course, still active, still podcasting, still, in that emeritus role, pops up every now and then with something to say, writing, television appearances. We talk about the godfather of sports radio and Eddie Edelman. You talk about, Bob Ryan as kind of the chairman of the board of Boston basketball and kind of sports media.
His best days are behind him.
Yeah, that's Bob's views on Giannis. And I got to say, George, and I know that we're kind of in agreement here. Hey, we got to talk about this, right? We got to talk about it because this is the thing that we're going to be pummeled with, assaulted with for the summer of 2026. I mean, it was Jaylen Brown for Kevin Durant for a couple of consecutive summers a couple of years back. Now we're into this. It's going to be Jaylen Brown for insert player X until the end of his career, I think. And as long as that's the thing, it's our duty to discuss it. But how is Giannis, to Bob's point, how is Giannis more of a sure thing than Jaylen Brown? And you can argue that the body of work, George, do you agree with me? Body of work, Giannis Antetokounmpo, surefire Hall of Famer. Jaylen Brown probably on a Hall of Fame trajectory.
Correct.
But Giannis's career, more impressive.
More decorated, at least. To this point, it's hard to argue, the return and gripe about it, but I'm just more concerned about the fit.
Yeah. And I mean, I get what Cerrone's, and again, people I respect their basketball takes, right? I respect Cerrone's take that Giannis switches things up around here. I know that you're all tired of the same old thing from your Celtics, particularly your Celtics offense. But I think Jaylen Brown gave you the different thing this year with the Celtics offense that maybe you're not appreciating, where all of the bots around him were hoisting. Jaylen Brown was dominating in the mid-range, was taking it to the basket, getting fouled, getting to the free throw line at a higher rate than he ever has in his career. He did everything that you asked him to do, and you're disappointed with the Celtics because they're too monochromatic, because they just bomb too many threes, and you're asking to trade away the one player who actually breaks from that mold in Jaylen Brown. Oh, by the way, the guy who came back to the team, the guy under whom the team's image completely flipped, and then they turned back into the jacket-up three-point team, was Jason Tatum. But no, we never want to trade Jason Tatum around here because he's the golden goose. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with Jason Tatum, but I'm saying if you look at this factually, when Jason Tatum returned, they returned to the team that annoys everybody. And that's the team that got blown out of the playoffs. Jaylen Brown should stay here. We're not getting Giannis Antetokounmpo, I think, for any sort of extended run. People say he's the same age as KG was when he came to the Celtics. Do you remember what happened with KG?
I remember the back and forth and the tampering and how he wouldn't come to Boston. And then draft day happened. We made the trade for Ray Allen.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, those extension talks were back on the table. And thank God Kevin McHale did us a solid. That I won't believe otherwise.
He did us a solid, and it was great. And I'm very intrigued about draft day and what that brings us this year, or brings us or doesn't bring us this year. But that Kevin Garnett got the Celtics, off the schneid. They got the ring they've been looking for since 1986. Mission, as Grandy said, mission statement is mission accomplished, right? But you got Kevin Garnett, the cyborg, the Hall of Fame unicorn basketball player, for 1.5 seasons. Then after that, he messed up his knee. And following that, for the next 4.5 seasons, you had the beating heart of Kevin Garnett, of course, without the physical gifts. What does the Greek freak look like? Hey, by the way, newsflash, freaks break down. What does the Greek freak look like when he is just a shell of himself? I'm sure the will to win is within him, right?
It's true. It's hard to dismiss the great Bob Ryan here because I'm just so in agreement with him. I would say that Giannis is over the hill. We kind of know what
He's
to
over the
expect
hill.
with Giannis to be sure. When it comes to the Jaylen Brown component, I still think that there's more to give there. There's
Yeah.
still more underneath the veil that it hasn't quite shown itself. We got a glimpse of it this season, is what I would say. Granted, the Game 7 was put on his lap. I would say it was more of an atypical kind of a way that it was presented to him because we were kind of shocked
Yeah.
by the Tatum
Yeah.
being questionable to begin with, and then the 45 minutes before game time being ruled out, and then Jaylen Brown not being in the loop there. I just think that wasn't conducive to getting the most out of JB. But I still think that there is more to give from a young JB, and obviously Giannis a little longer in the tooth. And it's not to discredit all the accomplishments that Giannis has done in the NBA, because if this is the path that the Celtics will take, ultimately, I'm a Gerber baby. You're gonna feed me the spoonful of it. I'm gonna eat those smashed peas, and we'll call it the Greek Freak, and we'll have the dynamic duo with Tatum and Giannis and see where it goes. But ultimately, I don't think they kind of go together. The mesh. I see Giannis and Tatum as the same position. I see them both as fours.
Right.
People think that adding Giannis is a big, and it's because he can't really shoot the three effectively.
That's the only reason. Yeah.
Right. That's the only reason that they view him as like, oh, we could play small ball, have him at the 5, and he'll be down low, and he wants to play down low. Granted, I know Jaylen Brown would rather play, to your point, down low with the back to the basket, and the Celtics under Mazzulla haven't demonstrated the ability to change that philosophy, work inside out. That's what I'm programmed to root for as an old school fan of the NBA. Work inside out. It's a novel concept, but the 2-3 foot shots are a lot easier to make than the 23, 25 foot 3-pointer. So that's where I am with the Celtics. Giannis. Hopefully this doesn't come to fruition. I would like to think in the dream world we can get all three together. That's not going to happen with this second apron mess and all that stuff, and needing to extend Giannis, because that's what we're headed towards. If we're going to complete this trade, you're saying that you are going to extend Giannis a la what we did with Garnett 07-08.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this changes the ingredients so much that the Celtics are now these ultimate contenders with Giannis as opposed to JB. I don't see it.
You talk about people talk about, I guess, I'm not saying you talk about, but people talk about the Celtics window potentially closing with Brown and Tatum. What's the window with Giannis? I mean, is it,
right?
It's certainly not bigger.
It's a draft. It's like a creek open,
Yeah, it's a draft. And, you kind of mentioned like the dynamics lineup wise, and I get it. Like Giannis at the 5 is appealing, but, much like Al Horford wasn't a 5 here in Boston, you know what Giannis was best with? He had Brook Lopez to park his big ass down in the paint and, also shoot a lot of threes. But when it came to doing the dirty work and boxing guys out and, bodying up opposing centers and getting some block shots, that was Brook Lopez. Giannis is the guy coming in for the chase down block. Giannis is the guy who's letting his athletic gifts translate in other spaces of the floor. He is not the guy who's down low, bodying up a guy who's got their back to the basket. And, whether it's and they still exist, a few of them, Joel Embiid, Wemby, Jokic, etc. Even the dudes on the Thunder, whether it's Hartenstein or Chet, and that's just a whole, that's like bone on bone, Chet Holmgren going against Giannis. But the thing to me, throw out the loyalty to Jaylen Brown that we're both displaying right here in this conversation. Just look at it factually, all right? The Celtics have the blueprint on how to win with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. It's as good as any blueprint that we've seen over the last 8 seasons. The reason being because nobody has managed to repeat. The Celtics were unable to make that blueprint work for them 2 years in a row. You could say Porzingis' injury played into it. You could say a lot of things, right? But the 2024 Celtics, due to the fact that they won one single title with that blueprint, that is as good of a blueprint as the Lakers, the Thunder, the Warriors, the Nuggets, the Bucks. Giannis was not able to run it back in Milwaukee. The Celtics, not even fully formed, the not ready for prime time Celtics beat him in 2022. They got Damian Lillard and tried to switch up the blueprint there, and he wasn't able to win. The Celtics have the blueprint. They had the 2 stars They supported them with a balanced team with guys in the 3, 4, and 5 position on your roster. I'm not talking about positionally. I'm talking about guys who are in your pecking order who can step up and have a star offensive performance while also providing a solid defensive backing. The support system was there for those two guys to thrive. And here's the thing. I trust Brad Stevens with this. Even if you don't like the style of play, I don't think the style of play is ever going to change as long as Joe Mazzulla is the coach and Brad Stevens is the executive. However, Brad Stevens moves in silence, which is why I particularly don't think this is going to happen. We didn't know.
I would love dunks.
Loves dunks. We didn't know that it was going to be Drew Holiday coming to Boston. I remember hearing about that trade. I was on Father's Day, right? I was on a day trip with my dad. We went to Cutty Hunk, which is a place that he'd never been. We took a boat over. You got to know your way over there to go to Cutty Hunk. We took a trip, walked around. It was cool. Ate some seafood, oysters, and had a nice day. And I got some reception at one point on my phone, and I just went, Drew Holiday's a Celtic? What?
It's a beautiful, pleasant surprise. That's right.
Yeah, and it was the same thing that summer when I don't know what I was doing. Was I like, I think I was like cleaning up my tool shed or something. I was like, Giannis or Kristaps Porzingis
for Marcus
Smart is out. Oh yes, I am in on this.
Right. Good roll of the dice, Brad Stevens.
He moves in silence. I'm hoping that he has some leash to do what he wants to do this summer. I don't know who the guys are. I want callers to tell me who the guys are. I want those who think that they know everything about the Celtics to tell me who the guys are, because I don't think that it's out there. I don't know if it's Trey Murphy or Bobby Portis, who a lot of people assume is like a contract that they could easily absorb, right? It's somebody that we're not even talking about, that Brad Stevens is going to bring in. And he has the financial leash to do it this year. There's those exceptions that are out there. And I just think if you play this right, you can win again with these two players a lot more easily than if you completely remolded this team with Giannis Antetokounmpo as the fulcrum here and not knowing what you're going to get out of a creaky 32-year-old. So that's just what I'm looking at coming into the draft on June 23rd. Do you expect anything? Are you looking at like this week?
I have scoured the Twitter sphere, so just in case anything breaks. I know
Thank you.
A lot of speculative things.
Oh,
that
of course,
are
always.
Especially with the week leading up to the draft. We're a half week away here. I'm not anticipating anything, to be honest.
Okay.
I'll hopefully the Heat or somebody else will swoop in and he can have fun and party down over there in South Beach. But I'm with you in terms of what you were saying, that the Celtics and building a dynasty kind of a thing. And I'm not going to dismiss these eight or nine champions that have been different. I think the Celtics are one of the few teams that have welcomed themselves back and kind of had the mold. But now. Is it time to press reset? That's for Stevens to decide this offseason.
They perfected the mold. They had it. They got a little way away from it. Things happen. We get it. But, look at the Warriors between, 2018 and 2022.
Right.
You still had the principles around, and even, Klay Thompson stunk. But they were still around, and they found a way to rewire and get back there.
And the Heat is another team I'll throw in there that was kind of consistent throughout that run as well, too, while Butler was healthy. So the Warriors, the Heat, and then the Celtics, I think, have kind of that mold. Whether it will persist into the future will remain to be seen.
And then, obviously, the 8th team here is the New York Knicks, our newly crowned NBA champions. And you know what? A lot of people are putting the Spurs as the betting favorites for next year. That's wild to me because everybody was saying Thunder, right, earlier this year. And now we got the Knicks as the reigning champs. I would go in, if I was a betting man, I would go in hard on the Knicks not repeating next year. And I got some thoughts on that. Credit them for cashing in. Oh, my number one thing before we break, George. I do not want Thanasis on the Celtics bench next year.
Deal breaker.
No, thank you. That is a deal breaker to me. There's a reason we're hearing all this, right? It's Giannis's agent, right, is also Bam's agent, and the Heat deal is not good enough, and, blah, blah, blah. It's all talk. It's all bluster. It's fun if you're online. I ain't got time for that. We just shut that down. See calls lining up. We'll take you on the other side. Sean Sylver here with the Sports Hub till 5.
Boston's home for sports. Celtics, the Patriots, the Sox, the Revs, and you. We're Boston's home for sports. 98.5 The Sports Hub.
4-point lead. Here comes Fox. 5 seconds remaining. Fox to Wemby. Wemby tries a three, puts it up, off the mark. Anunoby to rebound. It's over. It's over. Knick fans, this is not a dream. Your long, long wait has ended. Go ahead and cry. why, after 53 years, the Knicks are finally NBA champions once again.
Being a mom now.
Enjoying life.
Enjoying life.
I mean, good for her. I feel like Eve would have been that kind of person who would be like hosting some celebrity game show, now, because she was, she had the rhymes. She was the Rough Riders. What was her?
She's like the first lady of the
first
Rough Riders,
lady of the Rough Riders. So she was a little bit hardcore, but she also could dress up and be a lady in the street, And I feel like Eve would have been a good candidate to be like, hosting a random talk show that's on at like
filling for Oprah.
11:30, on like I don't know. But shout to Eve. Hope she's well. As always. Sean Sylver here. George Sepulveda alongside. Father's Day weekend, kicking it on a Saturday. Some U.S. Open going on. Some World Cup going on. We'll dip into all of those things over the course of our show, of course. 617-779-0985 is how you can join us. Heard that call there of the Knicks winning the title. Got some thoughts on the Knicks winning the title, and particularly how it applies to the Celtics. But first, we'll get to the calls. We got Carlos in Worcester. Carlos got a take on Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. How are you, Carlos?
Hey, how you doing, guys? Thanks for taking my call.
Of course.
You guys actually didn't talk about the huge problem that the Celtics got, and that's Joe Mazzulla. Why are we not getting rid of this guy? Oh, my God.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, I just can't stand it. And then one more thing is that if we're going to get rid of anybody, get rid of Tatum because, we can get a lot more for him. And that's basically all I got, guys, on the Celtics.
Carlos, appreciate you checking in. And, I've not been shy about – I don't know if it's a take. I just think it's a preference. I think Jason Tatum is an incredible basketball player. I enjoy watching him. I am very glad that the Celtics have him in their employ, right? He's I won't say the heart and soul of the team because there's multiple beating hearts on that roster, but he's definitely the golden goose, right? He always has been. Part of me wants to kind of stick up for Jaylen Brown in all these conversations. Why we always got to be trading Jaylen? Why can't we just talk about the other guy? What could happen if we traded the other guy? Now, I get it, right? Everyone's always like, well, Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum is an MVP candidate. Well, let's be clear on that. Jason Tatum, a fantastic player. It takes an incredible level of physical and mental acumen and skill to be considered among the top 5 or 10 players in the NBA, but that's all that he's ever going to be, and that's not a knock. That puts him in the same category as a Giannis right now, or as his teammate Jaylen Brown, who finished 6th in the MVP voting this year when given the opportunity to go out and have the keys like Tatum generally does. Jaylen Brown finished 6th in the MVP voting. I think the highest Tatum's ever finished is 4th. Again, this is not to stoke the flames because I want both of these guys here. I just think it's criminal that the only one we ever talk about trading is Jaylen Brown. Boston sports fans just get it in their head that this guy's untouchable and this guy's the guy that he's the problem. He's the guy that we got to move on from him, and that's the way that we're going to get better. No. Moving on from Jaylen Brown's not how you get better. In fact, moving on from Jaylen Brown, this team becomes even more one-dimensional offensively because is Jason Tatum particularly coming off the leg? Is he going to be 100% next year? Yeah, I believe it. But, hey, remember Tom Brady after he messed up his leg?
Took a couple years. Huh?
He was still a nasty, nasty quarterback, but he wasn't all caps Tom Brady. All right, you're going to be thinking about that. You need support there. Is Jason Tatum going to be going to the basket with reckless abandon? No, I feel like Jason Tatum is moving into the easy listening part of his career where he's out by the three-point line and doing those smooth radio hits from downtown, which is what everybody else in the damn team does. So you need Jaylen Brown. You need diversity in your lineup. And that's what we're looking for from the Celtics going forward. Yes, I know Giannis completely turns the recipe on its head, but you go out there and you get some players that give the Celtics different dimensions, and then Joe Mazzulla is not so much of a problem. If he was gone, they would have already fired him, okay? unless something is happening here where there's a personnel shift where I don't want Joe Mazzulla as the coach, which has happened in the NBA before. What about Adrian Griffin getting bounced out of Milwaukee and they brought in Doc? Like, that's happened before where players said, I don't want this guy as my coach, and it changes. No, Joe Mazzulla is going to be the coach of the Celtics. But Joe Mazzulla needs training wheels. He's a brilliant basketball mind, the acumen, the statistical analysis. It's all there. But Joe Mazzulla, like all of us, we have flaws. We have blind spots. We have things where we need a little bit of help in life. I have flaws. If I didn't have flaws, I'd be a full-time host at this station. I'd be doing whatever I wanted in life. But Joe Mazzulla needs, like in 2024, he needs a guy down low that you can throw it into and get an easy basket. Let's make it easy on ourselves and not hard. Don't overthink it, Joe. And you also, probably need, you just need to dot the lineups with some grown-ups in the room. The young guys impressed me. But again, the Knicks won this year on being the grown-ups in the room. They sunned the San Antonio Spurs. As cool as it is to see Wemby out there, they could get past the Oklahoma City Thunder, a la how the 1986 Houston Rockets got by the Lakers with Ralph Sampson, to me, the comp for Victor Wembanyama. And then they got to the finals and faced the adults in the room, and the 86 Celtics trounced them. That's what happened here in these finals. The Knicks got by being the adults in the room.
Which is too bad, I would say. Because, game 2 was everything, I would say, obviously. But, or the 20-point blown lead, to digress, everything is so muddy for me. I wanted that Josh Hart bricked layup. And then him afterward pointing at his head demonstratively, just wasting seconds, knowing that he just puked on himself. It was still a 1-point game at the time. It was a deficit for New York. I wanted that to be the Patrick Ewing moment.
The defining moment, right?
This New York Knicks loser franchise. Of course, that did not come to fruition.
Oh, George,
I wanted it so bad.
You want that, the Jim Murray. He wants the sports Schadenfreude, right?
Now he's being glorified. He's doing the rounds for late night TV.
Yeah. No, my
he's modest.
And
knows
again,
his role.
Father's Day weekend, right? Shout to the dads. My dad told me the day after the Celtics got eliminated that the New York Knicks were going to win the championship. And I was like, Dad, you're bugging out. Like, what is this? What tells you that the Knicks are going to win the championship? He was just like, I just feel like they're the best team that's out there right now. Like, I don't see the Thunder with, they had some weaknesses, clearly some health concerns. I mean, look at Chet Holmgren getting just eviscerated. I think probably he identified the same things in the Spurs that wound up biting the Spurs in the butt. But yeah, my dad picked the Knicks. My dad, a lifelong Celtics fan, picked the Knicks, and he was right.
Was he rooting for them?
I think he's an appreciator of basketball just in general because he just, like, in the years where the Celtics stink, Dad will, like, pick a team to, like, follow and just see some – even the years where the Celtics are good.
I would say we're used to winning,
Yeah.
It's okay to let go. And I had family in New York. I reached out to them. Congratulations.
Yeah. No, it's fair. Like, one of my best friends is a big Knicks fan. And I was just like, this is his dad recently passed. And I was like, this is the Bill Wright championship. Like, this is for your dad. This is for you. Like, enjoy this,
that's a long
right?
time.
Enjoy this. But, so we have a lot of New Yorkers in our midst, and it's okay to, be kind, to show kindness to them, right? But the rivalry's back on starting next year. And I mean,
right. I hate it.
Checking my notes. All right, the Rangers, the Islanders, the Yankees, the Mets, the Nets, the Jets, the Giants. This city has all of these teams
in droughts.
All of these teams, and the last time they won was 2011 with the Giants at the expense of the Patriots,
right.
14 plus years ago.
Even the Yankees, 09.
Yeah.
You're starting to get long in the tooth for the dynasty days. Yeah.
So, of course, New York got together on Thursday and told everybody how great they are. Alicia Keys, Timothy Chalamet, James Dolan gets a title.
Swiftie.
Yeah. Did you have a favorite part of the just the tomfoolery at the parade?
at the parade.
And by favorite, I mean like
Yeah,
like,
the
it was
lady
funny,
on the
but not.
pole, throwing the ladies fighting each other. Like, the guy passed out and getting revived and,
Yeah.
and smooching the lady. Yeah,
Like Boston's gonna
so
Boston, right? Boston's gonna Boston, and the whole world is seeing Boston right now for the World Cup. It's funny how Boston's getting outdrank by the Scots right now, but
That's right.
we
We could support them.
New York is gonna New York, and they're gonna get all high and mighty about themselves. And oh man, this city was just waiting to come back and show that we were the best. It's always just been right under the surface. No, the Knicks are a joke of a franchise. They're a joke of a franchise, and the fact that people are coming out with these, and again, like, I respect the work of various journalists, but all of what we do is hot takey in a way, right? Jalen Brunson, the greatest Knick of all time.
I knew that's exactly where you were going to. Not even his father agrees with that.
Two parts to this. A, doesn't this just like smell? I got the Joe Murray sniffer. Like, doesn't this smell a little bit? Doesn't this reek of like the Knicks being a Mickey Mouse franchise? Kind of like their counterpart who won the NHL, the Stanley Cup. The Knicks are like the Carolina Hurricanes of the NBA. The Knicks, however, have been around all of these years, and you've only got this many like legends. Like, what is going on? It's because the team has been irrelevant the rest of the time. And two, like, you're going to put Jalen Brunson playing in an era where you can't touch point guards up against Clyde Frazier, a guy who won 2 titles, was one of the best offensive pure point guards of his era, and defensive point guards of his era.
Yeah, just such a recency bias.
Oh, it's so bad.
It's a byproduct of the society we live in
Yeah,
now.
it's
just
so
instant
bad.
gratification and just like, what I saw today was the greatest thing ever. It's just like you wouldn't even know stats if they hit you in the face. And back then, people actually stayed with the team for the longevity of their career. And Clyde Frazier is the one I would put on the pedestal even above Patrick Ewing. But for our lifetime, Patrick Ewing, a lifer Nick, obviously the back end of his career, but a lifer Nick. Look up those stats.
People don't appreciate what a force Patrick Ewing was. I mean, Jalen Brunson's been good for 3.5 seasons or whatever, however long he's been there. Like, he's been very good.
It's like Garnett, the greatest Celtic of all time. We won in 07-08. Like, what?
And the key difference is, you can't breathe on Jalen Brunson. You cannot breathe on Jalen Brunson. You can't tell me that all these 6'4" and below players these days are better than Allen Iverson or Isaiah Thomas or someone who actually had to be in a 6 foot or a 6'1" body and get beaten to a pulp every night. It's not the same game.
Game 1, even on his jump shot, even though it was a made basket, he tried so hard to just flop on himself. It just and people are starting to take notice. Thankfully, you shoot the jump shot, you're jumping in the air, you have the ability to land.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you're jumping not to land, you're a ballerina. Okay. And we're gonna expose you now, and that video will live forever. Hopefully, the shame will get to them. And I know Jim pointed that out. Us as men, we kind of suck with that. So hopefully, the NBA can get a hint from the soccer world. We'll get to that later. But flipping of the yellow cards for the flopping and the embellishment, or NBA, tech them up, give them techs. Tack them up on the Rashid rule. You get 2 techs in a game, you're already ejected.
Yeah.
Go ahead and continue to flop. We're going to expose you.
Yeah. James Harden would be the all-time leader in disqualifications in NBA history if that was the case. And Jalen Brunson will be on his heels. Oh, man, we're on the Joe Murray clock. Again, I spent the early part of my career here working a lot of shifts with Joe Murray. Well, I'm going to run a Joe Murray clock and steal his sniffer on occasion. 617-779-0985. Do see people lining up here. Hey, we're here until 5 o'clock. We'll get to all the topics we want to get to you on the other side of this break here on the Sports Hub.
Boston's home for sports. game. It all happens here. 98.5 The Sports Hub.
Summer of 2001 hits. So, George, you're trying to make me feel like I'm graduating high school again?
This time of year, I always get a little nostalgia, man. You know, at the high school and college graduates, it's a good time to be alive and to be in that 18 to 23, 22 range.
It is, that's for sure. No, I've been doing some podcasting lately. We've been talking a lot about that, like the music of your youth. Why does it call to you so? And why, as you get to a certain point in your age, you're just like, I'm just done with that. I'm just done. I like what I like. I'm sticking with that. But yeah, like age 17, like there's supposed to be like a scientific explanation that the ages 14 to 17 are supposed to be the ones that just you're riding with it.
Oh, we're going to have to make it generational now, because I would pick on the way we consume music nowadays. It's just completely off the rails different. That, of course, in a universe that I wouldn't have envisioned, having everything at your disposal. And back then, it was kind of exclusive, a little bit more exclusive to be a fan of these underground tracks.
No, you couldn't just go on like Bandcamp or SoundCloud or whatever,
or even Pandora.
Find
just
stuff.
Play whatever, and commercial free. Just go ahead and do it. Give you other suggestions to your genres. No, you have to know what you were looking for.
Yeah, man. Now, hit me up on the socials. You can learn more about what I'm doing over there. I'm not going to plug it on the air, but having fun conversations about music on a weekly basis. Thanks, George, for playing some hits. We had a couple Celtics calls that dropped during the break, but I'll get back to what I was talking about here. And that one is that I'm not trading Jaylen Brown for Giannis. Again, we are tasked with discussing this, so of course we will. I know that Jim and Michael Hurley spent some time on that, in the Celtics block earlier today, and we're probably going to be spending time on that until something happens with Giannis Antetokounmpo, whether it's this week at the draft that's coming up on the 23rd. I'm very interested to see what Brad Stevens does to, I don't think in any of the recent drafts we've been looking at the pick as the big thing, though. When you talk about it now, your last three picks in Jordan Walsh, Bayless Shireman, and Ugo Gonzalez all look like contributing rotation NBA players now, which is a credit to the coaching staff, a credit to Jaylen Brown, again, as the adult in the room last year. Jason Tatum, who was nominated for I was going through the NBA awards with my son, actually, the other night. He was nominated for Teammate of the Year this year. I mean, he was there. He was around. He was helping guys. Those guys ascended, and, definitely a credit to them and the infrastructure that's around them. But, yeah, a couple of things. Like, two guys who their value is high, right? Well, actually, one guy whose value is higher than it has ever been, and another guy whose value was built within the Celtics infrastructure. Nimi Keita and Sam Hauser. I don't think they're two guys who can get you a lot, but I think they're guys who have value in the league, probably particularly Keita. I'm not looking to get, a big player back for one of these guys. Don't get me wrong about, the Celtics fans always overrate their players. But if you look at the roster, right, because the capital is what's going to be, the money is what's going to be the determining factor in who you're getting and the picks that you want to give up and the assets. I'm not saying that Keita and Hauser are an asset necessarily that's going to be included in some sort of trade. They might be, but could you dangle one of those guys and get a pick back for them that you then flip into another deal, right? I think that there's this string of maneuvers that could lead to you getting those supporting players that we need to get. And, again, I mentioned 2024. We didn't know it was going to be Porzingis. We didn't know it was going to be Drew Holiday. Even 2022, we didn't know. There was no rumor that Al Horford was coming back to the Celtics after going to Philadelphia and being jettisoned to OKC. But he came back. Brad Stevens surprised people, and it wound up being a key piece of that 2022 finals run. Derek White kind of came out of nowhere in the 2022 trade deadline there, and wound up being a piece that we appreciated, particularly as they were giving the Warriors the business and up 2-1 in the finals before they blew it. But, we never really know exactly. And that's kind of what I love here. Like the Knicks, Leon Rose, right? The Knicks are connected. You're going to be hearing all the rumors about what the Knicks, were going to do. And we did. And then the Knicks did it, and they won a title. Anybody who's connected with Rich Paul, you're going to be hearing all the smoke. Anybody who's got Shams on speed dial. Brad Stevens' moves often happen quietly. It's a very different sort of dynamic from all the other bluster that you hear around the NBA. Even different from Danny Ainge when he was at the helm. So I'm very interested in what we're going to see out of Brad Stevens here. And then the other thing, the Knicks, just talking about Jalen Brunson. Give the guy his flowers, 45 in a closeout game, sure. But best Knick ever, top, and Bill Simmons. Love you, Bill Simmons. Top 50 player all time. I listen to the Simmons pod, all right? Top 50 player all time? Please. Again, it's a world where you can't touch guards. He shot 42% in the series. And I would even question, is Jalen Brunson all that much better than, Chauncey Billups? Think about a one-off NBA winner, right? And who their lead guy was. The Knicks are basically, in a lot of ways, like the 04 Pistons, where they've got, 5 guys who are kind of household names. They make a really good starting unit, right?
It's tough because Brunson, I would equate a little bit more to IT, if the Bridgie Celtics could have gotten over the hump. It's if us in 16 had gotten over the hump, this is the equivalent. That's
right, because he's a scoring guard,
yeah.
Whereas Chauncey Billups was a little in a different NBA at that time. They were scoring 80 points a game.
The Pistons,
in those
I would discern them by that was more of a mediocre team, all the way around. Kind of had decent players. They
were adults.
And Billups' role, right?
Yeah.
He was the crafty veteran and a journeyman by then.
Yeah.
Brunson, the offense, he is the Knicks, and if he wasn't on that team, they would fold. So it's more of akin to both ITs, I would say. Even the Pistons, not the 04 ones, but the late 80s Pistons and Isaiah Thomas Pistons.
Yeah,
he was on both Isaiahs.
I mean, he's the straw that stirs the drink.
Right. You take him away and forget it.
Yeah. No, I mean, so you got to give him credit, but I'm not going I'm not going cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs on Jalen Brunson. I feel like Mitch Johnson got Missoula'd in that series. I think there's
certainly did
a lot of comparisons there where you've got a not quite 40 years old NBA head coach who relies a lot on the analytics and doesn't make adjustments. I expect that Mitch is going to be back and hopefully takes some lessons away from that. But we'll see. We'll see where things go for the New York Knicks. We'll see where things go for the Celtics. And on that subject, Mike in Medford has I believe, a Celtics call here. Mike, how are you?
Hey, man. How you doing?
Thanks for calling.
Thanks for taking my call.
Yeah, of course.
I'm good. This is every season it seems like all the talk about the Celtics is just dumping anybody we have that isn't Tatum to go get some other person we haven't met yet. Neemias Queta in particular is the kind of player that every franchise in the entire league dreams of finding and developing.
Okay.
He was one of the most impactful centers in all of basketball last year. I think he was 6 in plus minus among fives, and very near the top of the league in that. His on-off numbers were bonkers. He got into some foul trouble late in the season, and they certainly tallied him up in the playoffs. He's an incredibly good, dynamic basketball player who doesn't make a lot of money. And the notion of shipping him for a pick to go get some other random guy, it hurts my heart.
Okay, so Mike, can I talk this out with you a little bit? Because
of course
I agree with what you say, and part of I love the Neemias Queta story, right? I love that we got this. Portugal doesn't have too many NBA players, right? Historically, we got this Portuguese guy comes in, buys in, plays himself, works himself into being an NBA starting center, and beyond that, nearly averages a double-double. It was awesome on the nights when he blew up this year. I just think that the number one, and this is, I guess, why I'm saying it, the number one thing that can make the Celtics different next year from this year is to have a big, a la Porzingis, not saying it's him or someone that's exactly like him, but someone who's not just like a guy who's going to get lobs and putbacks in the paint, but is actually like someone who can score around the basket with skill. And as much as I enjoy Nemi, and he was great with what he did, I just think you need an impactful post presence who's not gonna his lower body is not as strong as some of the other bigs in the league, and he can't score around the bucket like that. And to keep him around and just stick him on the bench, I think is a disservice to Keita and the work that he's put in. So I think you got to move him to make room for somebody who is like, fringy all-star type guy.
I will say this. One, Neemias Queta is a fringy all-star guy. This was his first. Man, you have to. I know you watched the games.
Yeah.
Treat yourself to going back and looking at him play this season. He is one of the most athletic fives in the league.
Yeah.
His shots got better further away from the basket the longer the season went. What he did not have was any kind of whistle because it was his first time as a starter.
Yeah.
If he did not get in foul trouble because refs didn't know who he was, I don't think the Celtics were home in that series. Like I don't think the Sixers beat them. I'm totally about like the notion of needing an impact big. I think we have one, and I think we have one that forces the Celtics to play a better balanced kind of basketball because he's not Porzingis. Porzingis is, certainly capable. He was capable of scoring in the post. That's not what he wanted to do. They wanted to drift much further out.
Well, they all do.
Well, they do. They all do. In fact, Keita, one of the rare guys, no interest, just down there in the dirt.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of thing that I think the team needs because we play basketball badly. And if you keep giving Joe Mazzulla shooters, he will keep using them, and the Celtics will keep blowing leads and losing games they shouldn't lose. That's my heart.
All right, Mike, thank you. And Mike is the kind of guy who I would love to keep around for a long-form conversation about this because, I love a guy who's got passion for a player. He supported his argument, obviously, well. So, my follow-up question would have been, all right, so if not the center position, then what are we going to do to differentiate this roster? So maybe it's a point guard, and I know George has got some thoughts on that. We can dig in a little more on the Celtics. On the other side here, we'll break here, and coming up at 3:20, we do have a guest coming in, Jack Encarnacio of the Laps Fan Wrestling Podcast. Big week in Boston wrestling. You might not have noticed it, but we're going to talk about it because I think it's worth it. 617-779-0985. See people still line up on the phones. We'll get to you. We'll talk more Celtics after this break and a headlines coming up on the Sports Hub.
Boston's home for sports. 90. Sylver Tire Studio. This is
Strong finger all up and go.
This is home of the 18-time world champion Boston Celtics. WBZ FM and HD Boston 98.5. The Sports Hub. Sports Hub headlines.
At the World Cup, the Netherlands just took out Sweden by a 5-1 margin. Coming up next today, we got Germany and the Ivory Coast. Team USA 2-0 winners over Australia yesterday. They've clinched their group. They will move on to the round of 32. They finish up group play against Turkey on Thursday. Red Sox out in Seattle. Those two teams play tonight at 10:10. Last night, Ranger Suarez, 6 2/3 innings, allowed just one hit, a 6-2 win that snapped Boston's 4-game losing streak. And at the U.S. Open, we've got a big. Who's the guy that's out front? Oh man, I just lost it. Anyways, he was nasty. He finished up his first round 6 under par. He's now 7 under for the tournament. He's 4 shots ahead of the field. I can't believe that we got a golfer right now that is 7 under at Shinnecock Hills. But either way,
Wyndham Clark.
Wyndham Clark. I was going to say Wyndham Hills. Is that like a record company or something? I don't know. Sports Up headlines brought to you by Valvoline Instant Oil Change. This is my finest headline ever. Enjoy quick and convenient vehicle maintenance this month. Visit NewEnglandOilChange.com for 15% off your drive-through oil change at Valvoline Instant Oil Change, the official oil change of busy people. I'm John Sylver, Boston's Home for Sports, 98.5 The Sports Hub. Next update, 4 o'clock.
The Sports Hub. 3 legendary franchises on one legendary radio station. It's the Sports Hub. Boston sports, yeah, we got that covered. 98.5 The Sports Hub.
This is a good one here. E-Dub. I like Derek Sermon. Sean Sylver here on the Hub. George Sepulveda keeping it real. On the board here at 98.5 The Sports Hub. We're until 5 o'clock. Coming up at 3:20, thereabouts. Jack Encarnacio of the Laps Fan Wrestling Podcast going to join us. We had a couple of stories in, I guess, Boston radio history and wrestling history that kind of converge here. I was looking for an excuse to talk to one of the co-chairs on the show. So we'll get into that, and that'll be coming up next segment. This segment, however, more calls on the Celtics. Let's get to them. Hey, this is great. This is great. Maybe we're going to figure out a solution to whatever the problem is here, and I feel like the solution is not going to be Giannis when we get down to it. But let's start with Marcel in Taunton and see what he's got. Marcel, how are you?
I'm great. How are you doing?
Doing pretty good this afternoon.
You guys have an awesome tempo going on. The vibe is just right for today.
Thank you.
What I'm saying about Jason Tatum and Brown, right? I believe to invest in those guys over $17 million in the future, it wouldn't be a good idea. Giannis, he wouldn't be a good fit for Boston. Mm-hmm. What Tatum have to do, he have to play more in the low post in order for it to do a good thing. They need a big man to score at least 10, 15 points with a rim protector. And Joe Mazzulla, I've been saying, if he continue with the trees, Celtics is not going to win for a long time if he's still there. But Tatum and Brown, they work good together. And the problem is Tatum is too passive, but I love Tatum. But the key is they have to change the mentality. And if those guys were closers, consistent closers, it would be no problem to give them that money. And that's my thoughts on the Celtics.
Okay, Marcel, appreciate the call, appreciate the kind words. And, yeah, I don't know. I feel like Jason Tatum has proven that he's a closer before. I feel like game to game, if you're looking at a 7-game series, you might get Tatum to hit the big shot in one of those games, right? But you're just going to need guys chipping in within the flow. And there's sometimes when that strategy goes haywire. I mean, to your point, Marcel, like some guy scoring 10, 15 points in the post, Like, I thought that's what Vucevic was going to do. Obviously, he got hurt, and he was never what exactly, that they thought that he was going to be. Who knows what the injury did to Nikola Vucevic's Boston run. But, what I saw was a guy who they just stationed about by the three-point line, and he is a big who-can range and chuck threes. Yeah, it's a component of his game, but he's one of those big, kind of slow, plodding Euro big men who you just set him up down low, you throw it into him, layup, all right, or jump hook or something like that. A lost version of basketball that I always kind of like tuning into, like Bulls games or Magic games on League Pass and seeing Vooch do that. So, I mean, even if they brought somebody in like that, I don't know if they'd use him that way. The Porzingis point that I have is that, okay, there's a guy who wants to be out at the three-point line. He's not even like a big banging body type center because, yeah, he's huge and heavy, but he's kind of wiry, right, and breaks down. So we want to hang out by the three-point line, but also you get that guy in like the mid-post out to the elbow and give him the ball, and there's so much that he can do with the ball that's either going to be, like a Tim Duncan-esque like bank jumper, or even just passing out of there in a Jokic type fulcrum way where you just hold the ball high and you watch the offense swirl around you. If you can get a threat who he doesn't even have to be a low post player, but you position him down there and there's a threat that he can score at any time on any possession, I think that just changes your whole flow there. But that's what I'm looking at. How about Dave in Shrewsbury? Dave, what do you got?
Hey, thanks for taking my call. I think they need a center who's a threat to shoot the three. I think what we saw in Philadelphia was when they were playing against the Embiid once he came back, they really didn't have anybody that pulled him away from the basket, and then that really causes the rest of the guys to shoot threes because they can't drive. The lane's clogged up. So, I mean, I think that definitely having somebody who can score in the post, but also is a threat, and maybe is going to take 4 or 5 threes a game, and the other team has to respect at least their three-point shot. That's what I think they need.
So, Dave, I guess a proponent of trading and Neemias Queta, with all respect to Queta. I mean, his value is high, and, I know Boston fans are known for their loyalty, but he's the kind of guy who, congratulations to him, ship him off somewhere, let him get a big contract maybe there, and, we find that player, whoever that player is, who could potentially take the Celtics to that next level, because that's exactly what we're looking at. But, I want to hit on here. Got a guest coming up. And the world of sports, Boston sports in particular, lost a legend this week. Eddie Andelman, right? Known as the godfather of sports radio. No, Eddie Andelman's not my guest. He literally cannot be my guest right now unless I have some sort of telekinesis thing going on here. But Eddie passed away at 89. His Sports Huddle show with Jim McCarthy and Mark Whitkin dates back to the 1960s here in this city. Of course, listeners my age remember his later career, his antics down the dial, the hot dog safari, the Kowloon, right? But the format that we're on today, as we've known it for many years, we owe that to Eddie and the Sports Huddle. Irreverent, always entertaining, and if you're of a certain age and you wanted to be on sports radio, you took notes on Eddie Andelman. He was the blueprint. So I'm bringing in for this next segment here, Jack Encarnacio with the Laps Fan Wrestling Podcast to talk a little bit about Eddie, because TLF got one of the last big interviews with Eddie. It's an interesting little plot piece in Boston sports history here. Coming up on the Sports Hub.
Boston's home for sports. 98.5 The Sports. In this town, sports happens 24/7. We're Boston's home for sports. 98.
And as I mentioned, this is something that I kind of wanted to pull together because we've had a loss here in the sports radio world. A titan of the industry has left the mortal coil. We mentioned the passing of Eddie Andelman before the break. Eddie never hid that he was a big pro wrestling guy, and I know George on the other side today playing the Nitro theme. He's a big pro wrestling guy. My fandom a bit stuck in the past. And with that said, I'm pleased to welcome Jack Encarnacio of the Laps Fan Wrestling Podcast, the most prolific podcast that I am aware of. Co-chairs Jack and JP bring a unique chemistry and perspective to the pro wrestling of lore. Jack, thanks for coming on the Sports Hub this afternoon.
John, thanks for having me. Really excited to discuss the only sport where everyone doesn't have to argue after their favorites lose whether or not it was predetermined.
There it is. One of the hallmarks of TLF there, and also one of the big parts is the signature deep dive. You guys choose an event from the past, you review the archival footage, whether it's audio or print, and you go in on it. I wanted to pick your brain on this obscure event that you covered a few years back. A Boston show from 1985 that was held at Matthews Arena, and Eddie Andelman, God love him, brought this all together. What are some memories of Wrestling for a Cure?
Yeah, this was fascinating, and everyone got into it again because it got posted on YouTube in its entirety, the whole CVB broadcast. I mean, Eddie Andelman, apropos to what I just said, he always pointed out, that wrestling was the only major sport to never have a betting scandal.
Yeah.
Which I think is an excellent point.
Yes.
And I asked him when I interviewed him, why do you think that is, Eddie? And he went quiet. Because Eddie is kayfabe. Eddie understands working the public, or he did, rest in peace. You were just as likely to get a tall tale out of him when you asked him about his wrestling days as you were to get the straight dope. Mm-hmm. And so he was a pro wrestler in a lot of ways. He was like a pro wrestling manager. He was akin to a Captain Lou Albano or a Grand Wizard Ernie Roth, who he was very good friends with, by the way.
Right.
And so he would make it a habit of trying to have wrestlers on his show, on Sports Huddle and other shows, and he would eventually get into promoting. He did the first WWF King of the Ring event at Sullivan Stadium, where the Patriots used to play, the former name in Foxborough, in 1985. And then subsequent to that, Wrestling for a Cure came up. This was for charity, for cystic fibrosis, for kids that were suffering, the Joey Fund. And he put this show on at Matthews Arena that aired live on CVB with Mike Lynch playing Mean Gene Okerlund in the back. Tremendous stuff. We talked to Mike about that.
Yeah.
And it was just it was a wild and woolly affair, and just something like you'd never expect to see on CVB. Just a really interesting piece of history, and Eddie put it together.
Yeah, Jack, it's interesting too having this perspective because you're a Massachusetts native, an Emerson College guy, right? And you JP have been doing this, with kind of a New England perspective to a sport that is broadcast all over the world. So thinking that on Channel 5, on a weeknight back in the summer of 1985, we had pro wrestling on, but it wasn't WWF. Eddie Andelman, for whatever reason, pulled some strings and got guys like Sergeant Slaughter out here, Bob Backlund, post-WWF run, and, probably the hottest properties in wrestling at the time, shy of Hulk Hogan, the Road Warriors appearing at Matthews Arena in a charity wrestling event on Channel 5 with, as you said, Mike Lynch doing the interviews like BG. Just so cool.
And he has great memories of it. And the thing that was interesting with Eddie is this AWA event at Matthews Arena took place just a few months after the first King of the Ring. That was not on television. It was just like a local promotion.
Yeah.
And Eddie basically conceived of this one-night tournament to determine the King of the Ring, the first one being Don the Rock Morocco. And this AWA show happens a few months later. It's pretty clear, and I've spoken to some people who know the Boston wrestling scene, it's pretty clear that Eddie Andelman had a falling out with Vince McMahon over the way the first King of the Ring went down. It drew exceptionally well. I think upwards of 35,000 spectators were there. It was a big event. Eddie says all the money went to charity, etc. I'm not sure who paid the wrestlers, but that's neither here nor there. And so after that, for some reason, all of a sudden, Eddie Andelman is doing business with Vern Gagne, who was the guy out of Minneapolis who ran the AWA. And you could argue Vince's sworn enemy at the point. I mean, that was just a year after Vince McMahon had taken Hulk Hogan from Vern Gagne and created the Hulkamania phenomenon and the rock and wrestling phenomenon that we all remember if we grew up in the 80s.
Yeah.
And so I was like, Eddie, this is clearly an FU to Vince. And he just didn't want to. He pretended he didn't remember how. He pretended basically that Vince McMahon supplied the wrestlers for the AWA show, which is obviously outrageous. Larry Zbyszko, Sergeant Slaughter, Bob Backlund, all these WWF guys or WWF guys, to go back even further, that he had on this AWA show had all had a falling out with Vince Jr. after he consolidated power and nationalized the wrestling business starting really in 1984. So that he was sort of like playing cute with these guys were WWF guys. Yeah, they were, but they all would have attacked Vince in the street at that exact moment if they could.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that too, because Vince, when the WWF was kind of going national, right, you would watch their syndicated broadcasts and they'd have a little, like a local read, and they'd be like, hey, have your charity event with the WWF. So when it was convenient for them to get into a high school gym and, run the Lions Club or whatever and give back to a local charity, they would do that. But once they started blowing up, of course, Vince probably wanted to reap the benefits of that. And, of course, the King of the Ring goes from an Eddie Andelman creation to a full-blown pay-per-view where, of course, Hulk Hogan loses the belt to Yokozuna in 1993. Of course, it took some years for this to come together. But you mentioned Eddie as a promoter, and yeah, it's really true that, you compared him to Captain Lou and the Grand Wizard. I mean, almost like Bobby the Brain Heenan, where he's always got a one-liner kind of stored away. But you never know exactly how he's going to play it. Is he playing it straight? Is he playing it kayfabe in this interview? And you got 45 minutes to an hour with the legendary Eddie Andelman just, a few years ago. He wasn't really making too many public appearances. How did that come up? You reached out to him and got him for an interview on this random wrestling event from 35, 40 years ago.
Yeah, man. So what we do on The Lapsed Fan is we watch an entire event from the past, and then we just go nuts trying to find out every last little thing we can about the event, matches that happened on it, what wrestlers have said about the matches. And in this case, with the Boston connection, I just had to go the extra mile and actually try to find people. So I got Mike through Twitter, who's kind enough to agree to come on, and it turns out he really remembers this fondly as one of the cooler things he was able to do in sports broadcasting. So that was great. And then, I was able to find contact information for Eddie's family. They put the word out. He was down in Florida at the time where he retired, and he was more than glad to come on and talk about it. You almost got the sense that he was pleased to talk about just wrestling in a vacuum is one thing he did, because, he was a wrestling fan dating back to when an old-time promoter named Abe Ford used to promote Boston wrestling out of Matthews Arena. And that was pretty much wrestling before Vince McMahon Sr. really claimed Boston as part of his New York-based territory. Boston was kind of up for grabs, going all the way back to a promoter from the 30s named Paul Bowser, who at the time was promoting matches that were putting 34,000 people in Fenway Park in the 30s, setting attendance records for pro wrestling in North America that wouldn't be broken until the 1980s. And so the Paul Bowser to Abe Ford transition of control of Boston wrestling was one that took place just as Eddie Andelman was, a Brookline native, kind of finding his way around the sports and promotion scene. And so I was really happy to see that he was just willing to just espouse on it for an hour almost, as opposed to just it was one thing I did. Because you'll get that. You'll get guys that full well went hard in the wrestling business but are afraid to talk about it or ashamed to talk about it. And he, because obviously, it's completely phony and foolish. So there's that. But if you embrace that and if you get over that, you can have a lot of fun talking about and thinking about wrestling. And it's amazing to me that I watch guys who are way better at falling and selling in the World Cup than I do on Monday nights.
Yeah, this is true with the tie-in throughout the show here. George and I were going on about, NBA players who fall too much. We got soccer players who fall too much. Where does it all come from? It comes from watching wrestling on Monday nights or Saturday mornings. Just
to make it look believable.
Exactly. You got to sell it. We're always trying to sell it. We're always trying to draw. Wrestling World also lost another character this week with Massachusetts ties, the Duke of Dorchester, Pete Doherty, who fans might remember as like a zany prelim guy based in New England. But, of course, as I mentioned, that syndicated programming going all over the world. You referenced a time in an episode, I forget exactly which one, but you got to visit the dukedom, so it is, the Duke of Dorchester's house. And you interviewed him, I believe, for the Herald. Is that where it was?
It was actually the Globe in 2004. I did a couple of pieces on Boston wrestling history for their City Weekly section, which is where I got hip to a lot of the history I was just talking about for the most part. And yeah, I found out that Pete was still down in Falmouth and was more than happy to talk about his career. They were doing, these Legends festivals at the time. One was coming up at Suffolk Downs, where all these old timers show up and sign autographs and take pictures and lie to you about what actually happened when they were wrestlers, all that stuff. And so I found out that he's down there willing to sit with me. Of course, the dukedom, because he's not a king, he's a duke. So instead of a kingdom, he's got the dukedom, which was, a nice, cape with a basement. It was very nice. We sat in his kitchen and talked about everything. He had 2 teeth in the front because he lost them in an auto accident. Of course, he told wrestling fans for years and years that he lost them in the ring, battling untold foes.
Of course.
And he was a guy who worked at the General Dynamics in Quincy and used to pull cable, and he didn't want to give up that pension. So he never really tried to go, and travel to different territories, although he did get around a little bit as a pro wrestler. But he was more than happy to just stay Boston-based and just hit the towns and count the lights. He talked about, studying the Celtics championship banners, laying on the mat, taking another loss at the Boston Garden and thinking, we sell this building out just like the Celtics do, and we hardly have any money.
Yeah, it's like that in the business, as we've referred to. Obviously, Vince McMahon did it a certain way, or Vince McMahon Jr. did it a certain way. When you were talking about counting the lights, that kind of made me think of my cousin Dan. Went to law school, after graduating and spending a few years in the professional realm, and went back to school to get his law degree. And who did he run into in his law class but Mario Mancini, another locally based guy who was very good at counting the lights. And he would regale him of getting the avalanche from King Kong Bundy or getting the tombstone from Undertaker. And again, we don't know really, with these people in the business, if they're giving us the straight dope or just something that we want to hear, right? But you can actually go back and look at his fight profile, as you call it, a fight. And Mario Mancini did do jobs to both Bundy and the Undertaker. It's so, I don't know, it's just so fascinating, guys who get in and manage to be on the fringe of this business but leave an imprint on us because we were watching it and devouring it as kids.
Yeah, and you have these guys that just, will he ever win a match? If I win a match, I'll retire. That's what he used to say.
The Duke.
And it's just, wrestling is so unique that way, where the losers are just so memorable in a way that is not true of losers, I think, in most sports. You think about how quickly you forget about the losers, even from the past season in every major pro sport. Yeah, Mario Mancini, a lawyer, huh? Well, I mean, I'm not sure if he passed the bar, but I know you could find him at one every night after the matches.
Oh, man. And speaking of the bar, TLF moving into the summer of laps. I know you guys have a big calendar coming up here. But, mainly I think I wanted to focus a little bit on what you're doing right now with Hulk Hogan. Of course, the guy that every wrestling fan knows and even your grandma knows about. He passed away last year. And you guys have gone on really the ultimate podcasting journey, turning over any and every stone that you could possibly find about the life and career of one Terry Bollea, the complete Hulk Hogan.
Yeah, thanks for that, Sean. It's like, for us, we're not afraid to just drop our entire format if we feel like there's a calling where we can do a series of podcasts that no one will ever be able to replicate and everyone will always have to go back to refer to get the full story. And we interweave that with a ton of irreverent humor and sarcasm and just, rude and crude things that we say and do imitations of the wrestlers and everything. It's not just a hyper serious historical exercise, but that is there. We did it for the history of the Dallas wrestling territory, the history of the AWA, the aforementioned out of Minneapolis. We did it for Vince McMahon's 1994 steroid trial, for instance. And so when Hulk passed away, we realized, what are we all doing here? It's because Hulk Hogan got us to see that wrestling can be pretty magical and pretty wild and pretty resonant in terms of where it sits in your mind. And so why is that? How did he become Hulk Hogan? So we just went all the way back to the beginning, and we're just doing podcasts until we're done from the day he's born in a Georgia hospital, his parents were living in a South Carolina trailer park at the time, and just going just bit by bit until we're done. I don't care if this takes until 2038. By the time it's over, every match, every promo, every news article, every bit of biographical information, every lie and tall tale, every legend that's said about Hulk that's complete nonsense, like, that he body slammed Andre the Giant and he died 2 days later. Andre, that is, which is, of course, not true. He was alive several years after that. And, speaking to the aforementioned beloved Eddie Andelman, he pulled a similar one when we interviewed him.
Yeah.
He was talking about how the young O'Donnell boy who had cystic fibrosis was sitting on his lap during the course of the Wrestling for a Cure WCVB broadcast, and said just a couple days later he died. And I looked it up, and sure enough, he didn't die for several years after the event. So that's the nature of legend. That's the nature of kayfabe, and that's why going systematically through a life like Hulk Hogan's can reveal so much. The idea that Hulkamania was first a 1984 phenomenon that Vince McMahon created, which was clearly not true because he was talking about Hulkamania for years in the AWA before he came to Vince. So everyone kind of settled. After he did Rocky III, it came out in '82. Everybody was talking about Hulkamania. He became a babyface star. That is true. But in going through all of his matches and promos, we found that, wouldn't you know, in September of 1980, as a heel in the WWF, as a bad guy, was the first time he said Hulkamania in a televised interview.
Wild.
So deal with the fact that Hulkamania was originally said by a really braggadocious, vainglorious good guy. Hulkamania was supposed to be an obnoxious thing that a preening bad guy said, not something that, would define childhoods in the 80s.
Kind of like when Heenan was trying to get over Bundymania at some point on Saturday night's main event in the mid to late 80s. Yeah.
There are many manias, and that's to say nothing of the actual psychological diagnosis in many wrestling locker rooms. There's manias. There's Beatlemania. There's WrestleMania. There was Austin Idolmania, who was a great promo in the wrestling business in the southeastern part of the country that Hulk later acknowledged, literally 5 years ago, acknowledged for the first time that he stole a lot of his shtick from. Yeah. So that's the kind of things you realize, this is, these weren't divinely inspired creations. These were, like any great thing, stolen from somebody else to a large degree. And it's fun to piece together where the influences come from.
It really is, Jack. You guys take it from a history background. You really do the legwork and the research, and whether it's from Pete Doherty and the life that he lived, being amongst the carnies of the business, or Eddie Andelman dipping his toe in there for a little bit, as a part of his show's shtick for years, and of course raising some money with it, to Hulk Hogan, the greatest one of them all. If folks out there are into the WWF or WCW of your childhood, I can't recommend the Laps Fan podcast enough. There's really nothing else quite like it. And Jack, I want to thank you for your time with us here on the Sports Hub.
Hey man, thanks a lot. It was really a pleasure being here, and check us out. We got the Eddie Andelman interview right at the top of the feed if you want to check out the Laps Fan on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. So you don't have to go searching. Hear what he said, and remember the man. He was one of a kind.
And yeah, you got one of the last interviews that I could think of with Eddie where he really expounded on something. And to your point, it wasn't just, tell us about how great you were at radio. I'm sure he's answered those questions a million times. This was something that he crafted, that he put his blood, sweat, and tears into to bring a wrestling event to Boston. And it's a one-of-a-kind event that you guys expanded upon for the listening audience. So yeah, check that out.
Covered Sergeant Slaughter's parking ticket, Sean. Okay?
Yes.
He brought Sergeant Slaughter to town in a camouflage limousine to drive around Boston to drum up interest in the show. Sergeant Slaughter took more than advantage of Eddie's generosity, ordering double roast beef at Durgan Park, to say nothing of the 3 desserts and 6 drinks he put down, according to Eddie. And further, the limousine with the camouflage exterior gets a parking ticket downtown, and Eddie Andelman was very quick to tell us he covered that for the Sarge.
Eddie Andelman, the legend. This is the kind of stuff that they get up to on the Laps Fan. Jack, appreciate it. You're the man, and
Thank you, man.
Looking forward to hearing more from you in the future. Take care.
You're good. Thanks, man.
All right. One of the co-chairs of the Laps Fan Wrestling Podcast, Jack Encarnacio, joins 98.5 The Sports Hub on a Saturday afternoon. I'd love to talk to those guys any day. I freaking love that show. But Eddie Andelman, 89, to say it was a good run, just a legendary run. Like I said, if you're from around these parts, you took notes on what Eddie Andelman was doing, and you just kind of hope that one day you could be on the microphone too. Oh my gosh, Scott in Rentham is here with a little take here. What do we got, Scott?
The Sylver Fox is back, baby.
Hey, how are you?
How you been, bud?
Hey, I'm doing well. How are things down our way there, down in Rentham area?
We're doing good. We're doing good in Rentham. But I hear you talking about Eddie, and I know we mentioned it on our show this week. But first show I ever did in radio was with Eddie. and it was the A team at that time with
Sure.
Del Arnold and him. And Eddie was unique, man. And for a kid that didn't grow up in Boston or around this area, I didn't have the accent. I didn't understand it. But when you heard Eddie talk, I'm like, who the heck is this guy? And what's he doing on sports radio? But, man, he knew how to do it. And a lot of the guys, everybody got starts through him and what went on over there. So Eddie had his ways of doing things. I know not everybody got along with him, but he was great, man. He was great to me. I did a TV show with him, and I always remember him talking about his wife, Judy, and his 2 sons are doing great with Phantom. But, sad to hear of his passing, and he's an all-timer in radio around here. That's all.
So, did you ever do the hot dog safari?
I never went to the hot dog safari.
I was going to ask how many Zoe could put down.
Was it at Suffolk Downs?
Yeah.
Yeah, almost went there, and then something happened. I had to go somewhere, but I never ended up going.
Okay, I think a hot dog eating challenge with Scott Zolak is something
The
I would love to
jambalaya
put
thing
on the
for that first Super Bowl was
Yeah.
unbelievable. Do you believe jambalaya? Like, what is he doing?
We were all feeling it, and I'm sure he said to you on more than one occasion, "Hey Zoe, how are you?"
How are you? Yeah.
Awesome.
He sent me to Aruba. He's a big Aruba guy.
Yeah.
Caught my trip there. Yeah, so it was great.
Yeah, he was like
It
an
was great.
ambassador to Aruba because they went there so often.
Hey, take care of my man, the People's Champ, George Sepulveda. Guy's a legend.
There it is. Thank you, Scott.
All right.
Appreciate the call.
I'll see you, boys.
Appreciate you, Zoe.
Good to hear from Zoe. You've been hanging out with them.
Yeah, that's right. Trying to put my name in the hat there too. It seems like Thursday and Fridays they got me as a staple every other week.
All
but
right.
they're trying to put my name in the hat there too and fill the Milliken shoes that seem to be the size too big, obviously, but big shoes to fill out.
It's a big tarp you got to fill up there.
Love the Section 10 people.
Oh man, Zoe remembering Eddie, obviously, jambalaya, a big part of Zoe's,
That
story
run.
too, right? That
Such
run.
a great run in '96.
I mean, and I did Zoe was involved. I talked to Zoe. I talked to Joe. I talked to Lawyer Malloy. Teddy J was in there at the time. I did a big thing back in 2021 or 22 on like the 25th anniversary, I think, of that team. Because we don't talk about that team enough.
No.
We don't talk about
They
that
were
team
loaded.
enough. That team meant something.
A lot of
Around here.
holdovers in that 01 team as well.
Yes,
had
it's kind of
Parpell's
like the Red
imprints all over
Sox who Dan Duquette signed, who were around,
Stayed
when
up for
Theo
03 or
took
04.
the right. I mean, it's the same sort of thing. Those guys, those holdovers, those stalwarts who were the veteran presence for the first iteration of a Patriots championship in 2001, 2002. Man, yeah, no, we'll break obviously real quick here, but on the subject of Eddie, I remember going to the hot dog safari and with my friends Ming and Brian and putting down, like 7 or 8 dogs and just being like in heaven. And they had a pro wrestling match that day. They had some organization came in. I forget which one. I'm sure we could look it up. Who was at Suffolk Downs in like the spring or summer of 2007. We saw some matches, and I mean that's just Eddie's. Never met him beyond like going up to him at Suffolk Downs and kind of being like starstruck. That's when I was first doing radio on like community station, and just being like, wow, Eddie Andelman, so cool to meet you. So I don't have any Eddie stories, but people around here do. I was texting with Howie Sylvester the other day. I know he spent some time. Yeah, another legend. I mean, you got a game day broadcast here for any of the big
Glad
teams
to be able
here
to
in
cross
Boston.
paths with him and pick his brain.
Oh my gosh! So I texted with Howie, and I thought I remembered him talking about working with Eddie, and it was right. Yeah, he worked with him in HDH, worked with him, multiple times in his career, and just said Eddie's the nicest guy that I could have worked with, and just cool to. Hey man, like I don't know, you probably feel the same way a lot. We walk in here, we're around people who've been kind of at the pulse of this industry for a decade or 2 or 3 or 4. And a lot of folks around here owe it to Eddie. So I figured, hey, I mean, that was a guy that I grew up wanting to listen to and be like. So we take a little time talking Eddie Andelman memories. Zolak calls in.
We respect our elders over here.
Yeah.
Sean Sylver program. That's right.
Of course we do.
Shout out to the sons as well, because I'm a big fan of Gourmet guys. So Dave and Dan, and condolences to the family, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. And and thanks to Jack for coming on to talk about that time that Eddie Andelman promoted a pro wrestling match at Matthews Arena. Good stuff. 617-779-0985. Take a break here. 4 o'clock. We're going to talk some saga. 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 4 o'clock. We're going to talk some saga What was the Simpsons? What is the Hank Williams thing?
Oh, so many Simpsons references for everything, but
oh man, yeah, we're gonna talk to Jackie Contreras, who covers the Boston Legacy for Musket Fire, but obviously the Legacy taking a little break right now in their season, but obviously the World Cup very much on the table. We'll talk with Jackie coming up at 4 here. Sean Sylver, George Sepulveda, hanging out with you till 5 on the Sports Hub.
Boston's home for sports. 98.5. Boston sports. We're fans just like you. 98.5 The Sports Hub.
The Sports Hub. My mindset is very June of 2001 with George Sepulveda's Sounds of the Game here. Sean Sylver hanging out with you till 5. And just heard from Jack Encarnacio, Laps Fan Wrestling Podcast. He clarified that event at Suffolk Downs at the Hot Dog Safari was New England Championship Wrestling. Yes, it all coming back to me now, like Celine Dion and Meatloaf. Hey, chime in if you feel like it. Memories of Eddie Andelman. Let's go to Art in the car. Art in the car. What do we got, Art? Hey, Art.
So, yeah, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Got it.
Yeah. Good. So, 69, 70, 71. I'm in high school. They called me the kid from Watertown.
Okay.
And first, they were at some bar in Harvard Square. Mark Whitgood and Eddie and another guy, I can't remember his name. They were just, and I had a wooden AM radio that I would listen to on Sunday night, and I would call in every once in a while. But the real story is 1 or 2 years later, 70-71, for the final score for the final time, some team beat the fabulous New York Giants, Tucker Fredrickson, and we would call up playing taps on anything but a musical instrument, and we would win tickets to his TV show on Channel 38. And I played the toilet paper roll taps. I won 2 tickets, went to Channel 38, and he dressed up like King Nero or Caesar, and Derek Sanderson was the guest, and he had some models feeding him grapes on stage as he laid back like he was Caesar or Nero. He was one of a kind. I think of him regularly. I'm now 72 years old, and I still think of him, and what a wonderful, wonderful legacy. What creativity, what a businessman, the fabulous Judy, but he hated the New York football Giants with a passion. Hated them.
And yeah, Art, there were a lot of people around here Oh, sorry, I heard a lot of feedback there, and I got a little trigger happy. But I want to thank Art for calling in there. A lot of people around here were Giants fans back in the day, right? Because there was a time when there were no Patriots, and even after that, you stuck with the team that you followed. Oh man, yeah. Just to hear about it was never serious with Eddie, and you know, and I'm not like lamenting where we are right now as an industry. Obviously, like a lot of things are good about sports media, and a lot of things are bad. But just to think that he was painting on really a blank canvas, so he could just do whatever. It's just so cool to think about Eddie Andelman back in those days and what he meant to sports fans in the region. So appreciate the memories from the callers. And yeah, George and I have been waiting to do this all show. It's like Charlie when he wants to talk to Mac about, you know, there's no Carol in HR and we got this Pepe Sylvia thing we got to figure out. I've been waiting to talk to you all day. We've been waiting to talk World Cup, and we will. We're going to talk World Cup and some Boston soccer coming up with Jackie Contreras, who writes for Musket Fire, covers the Boston legacy, and I kind of got onto her coverage of Boston soccer earlier this year. Enjoy it quite a bit, and I'm really pleased to welcome her to the show. So we'll do that after this quick break, a headline, and then some time with Jackie coming up here. Sean Sylver on the Sports Hub till 5.
Boston's home for sports. 98.5. Boston's home for sports. WBCFM 98.5, the Sports Hub, a Beasley Media Group station. Sports Hub headlines.
At the World Cup, Netherlands, a statement win 5-1 over Sweden earlier today. Germany and Ivory Coast just getting underway. That one scoreless in the early going. Ecuador and Curacao is your nightcap. Team USA, 2-0 winners over Australia yesterday. They've clinched their group. They'll move on to the round of 32 next. They finish up group play Thursday against Turkey. The Red Sox out in Seattle. Those teams playing tonight at 10:10. Last night, Ranger Suarez, 6 2/3 innings, just one hit allowed as Boston snapped a 4-game losing skid in a 6-2 win. At the U.S. Open, Wyndham Clark, your leader, headed into round 3, starts today's round 7 under par. Your Sports Up headlines brought to you by Safety Insurance, providing comprehensive coverage for your auto, home, and business. Ask your independent agent about safety. I'm Sean Sylver, Boston's Home for Sports, 98.5 The Sports Hub. Hi to Will and Annie.
Listen to it, laugh at it, get mad at it, agree with it, argue about it. It is Boston Sports. Boston Sports. And it is all we do. 98.5, the Sports Hub. The Bruins, the Celtics, the Patriots, the Sox, the Revs, and you. We're Boston's home for sports. 98.5, the Sports Hub.
Jugada preparada para Serginho. Se debía bien el propio gol. Fuera de lugar. Lo escuchamos. Fire.
After factual review, the goal scorer was not in offside position.
Gol.
In action yesterday down in Foxborough. Team USA played out in Seattle. You heard a clip from that there. They were successful in their 2-0 win over Australia. What a pop. And to talk about the world sport, we're joined for this segment by Jackie Contreras. She covers Boston Legacy FC for Musket Fire. And if you've got any reason to be on Twitter these days, she is a good follow at Jackie Digital. Hey, thanks for taking some time to join us here on the Sports Hub.
Hey, Sean. Thanks so much for having me.
So you're in L.A. right now, I understand. You just got off a flight. I think you're originally from L.A. Are you spending some time back home? Are you going to a game, or is it both?
Yes, I'm from L.A. Unfortunately, not going to a game yet. I just checked ticket prices like as soon as I got off my flight, but they're still a little. I think the cheapest one was like $700, so I'm gonna wait for the day of. But originally from here, I'll be here for like a couple weeks.
Still keeping the dream alive to get to a World Cup game this year. So
exactly.
I hope that works out for you, whatever way. Maybe somebody just stumbles into tickets. I know a friend who just they had work tickets that somebody couldn't use, and they just got them, and they were like, it was the awesomest thing ever.
Yeah, that would be a dream.
Yeah, no, it does sound wonderful. It sounds like you've been out and about for some of the festivities in Boston. Everyone's been talking about the Scots. I figured I'd pick your brain. What are some of your more memorable exchanges that you've had with visitors here this week?
Yeah, it's been very, honestly, incredible being immersed in all the celebrations and being able to talk to fans from all over the place. I think my first interaction might have been a day after the World Cup started, and it was a Scot, and he was telling me kind of just the history of Scottish football and how all of that works. So it was really cool, kind of learning a little bit about that, and then him also telling me his experiences of he had gone to the Scotland match, the first one in Boston, and he was explaining to me how it was his first time tailgating and how much he loved it. It was awesome to hear.
Yeah, it's kind of like this. We've seen this very much merging of the cultures, the general Boston cultures, where you drive out to a parking lot 35 minutes outside the city and do that thing, or at least these folks taking the trains with some degree of reliability. So, I've just been crossing my fingers the whole time that we won't let down the world when they come here. Yeah. We'll come through for them and they'll have a great time. on the whole, how are you enjoying, just kind of taking in this World Cup? Of course, we've expanded to 48 teams. Like, is this? I've heard different takes. Like, is this too much soccer? Is this the right amount? Is it perfect? Like, for me, I've been so into it, and obviously, like, I've got an 8-year-old son at home and who is soccer crazy, and we usually follow like the U.S. Women's team. More just to explain, it's like, well, this is the team that actually wins, son. Like,
exactly.
you might want to follow them, but I think just the opportunity to like immerse himself in a World Cup that's got this many games has been fun. How are you taking the 48 team field?
Yeah, I mean, I will never complain about watching soccer. So I think the more games, the better, honestly. It is a lot. They're kind of all like blurring together, but I mean, I feel like each game has like its own moment that's like crazier, the goals or whatever the players do. It's always going to be exciting, I think. So it's been fun watching that. And especially like we talked about, like having it here in this country, it has been really awesome. I've also am mostly a women's soccer follower, so I've had experiences going to 2 World Cups in different countries. So that was like my experience for the World Cup up to now. So being able to being immersed in everything, like knowing that I'm not going to leave in like a week, it's been really cool seeing everything go down.
Yeah. So you've been to the Women's World Cup twice. So I think I read in your bio that like you kind of like the 2011 World Cup was when you really got into it. So did you go to Canada and France, or did you go to Australia? Like where'd you pick up those?
No, so I watched the Canada one. That was 2015. Yeah, I was home for that one. So, I went to the France one in 2019, and then also went to New Zealand and Australia for this last one, which I didn't get to see them play because they literally got knocked out the night before my flight over there. But yeah, it was. I mean, watching them win in 2019 was incredible, and then still even like being able to watch other countries in the last one was really fun.
Yeah, that's so cool. I know my sister lived in New Zealand for a year or so, which I don't know. I spent my entire life in Massachusetts, so when people travel for these things, I'm like, wow, that sounds cool. But I know she got to go to a game. She had a friend who was from Sweden, and they took in a match over there, and that just seemed really neat. So that's a really really unique perspective there. So I guess in this tournament, people are starting to talk about Team USA, and I don't know, like how you feel about that. I mean, the men's team, they got out of the group round in 1994. The last time we hosted it, it just kind of feels like there's a confluence of factors where, okay, we've got it on home soil, and the team has won. I'm not sure about the quality of opponents necessarily, but they got a +5 goal differential. Like, people are riding pretty high and starting to make some bold predictions about Team USA this year.
Yeah, so like you said, I'm from LA. My parents are from Mexico, and my dad kind of was the one who raised me and, made me a soccer fan. So I'm not a fan of the U.S. men's team. I'm a Mexico national team fan for the men's. But, yeah, I mean, they haven't been great in the past, so I don't have too much confidence in them, but I mean, they could prove me wrong.
Well, people definitely go crazy about anything, and there's a lot of Johnny-come-latelys who are just like, oh, this soccer thing, let's get on board, right? But hey, it's great that everybody's kind of appreciating it in that sense. Obviously, I noted that your coverage of the legacy is kind of how I found you. I've been down at Gillette for a bunch of those games, and now obviously they've shifted to Pawtucket once FIFA took over Boston Stadium. But just kind of wanted to get your take, get your feeling about the whole experience of having like legitimate women's soccer back in Boston, and kind of the first year first-year adventure of this team. Like, they started out, they could barely score goals consistently, and then they really started to put things together.
Yeah, I started covering the team like when it was announced in 2023. So for me, it's been a long time coming. The first game, I was like, can't believe it's finally here. But yeah, they've been off to kind of a rough start. I mean, they had their first 5 games were losses, and then they had a 5-game unbeaten streak after that. And then now they're back to losing. But
only by a goal,
Yeah. So they've definitely gotten more consistent in the past couple games. There's definitely more confidence, and you can tell that in how they're playing. I think and even the coach just says like they need more time to kind of figure things out. And I think that's expected as a expansion team. I mean, they've only been together as a team since like February. So obviously there's going to be some, building chemistry and maybe having some difficulties throughout the way. But yeah.
Yeah, even establishing that chemistry, they made a move this week, and this is a move that you covered. Lily Reel, who's a great young player and a Massachusetts native, coming in on they got a 4-year contract with this player. Like, I feel that's a big move for the club. Obviously, like, I'm starting to fall in love with, different players on the team for what they do, but that back line just got what seems to be a significant upgrade now and in the future.
Yeah, she was a great get for the team. She was the Rookie of the Year last season. So, yeah, I think right now, especially, she's definitely needed she's a defender. So she's definitely needed on the back line, especially with, like, all the injuries that we've been having and, like, people are still trying to overcome. So, yeah, it's definitely great that we have an extra person back there.
Yeah, for sure. You mentioned the injuries, I would assume, for an expansion team can take a particular toll, right?
Yeah, it feels like there's been quite a few, but I think one of the team's strengths is with the players is like they're very versatile, so they're able to play in different positions. Yeah. I think that's definitely helped a lot. So yeah, I mean, if they keep. I mean, like I said, great that we have an extra person back there, but I think we should hopefully they should be able to hold their own.
So they've switched venues here from Gillette, and where they got 30,000 plus for the first game, with the New Kids on the Block performing the halftime show. The Right Stuff is the goal song there, but they've actually switched down to Pawtucket for a few games here. I think there's 5 games over the course of July and August before they finally get back to Gillette. I haven't actually been to a game at that venue, but that's like a new soccer-only venue. That's probably more like what it's going to be like playing at White Stadium going forward.
Yeah, and I think the difference is noticeable in terms of like the atmosphere. Obviously, it looked less. It just looked like there's more people because there's less seats. So that, I think, definitely contributed to a better atmosphere. I mean, the supporter section looked very fun in the last game. But, yeah, I think it'll definitely have a similar feel to how White Stadium is going to be next year.
Cool. George, you got something?
All right. I was interested to know, Jackie, which team you would have the rooting interest. Obviously, with the last name Contreras, my last name Sepulveda. I have a stepfather's Uruguayan, so I have multiple teams to root for in the tournament. It's good to see that you're rooting for the Mexican man as well.
Yes.
So to your decorated goalie, Meme Ochoa, obviously decorated. I'm sure your father loves him. 6 times on the World Cup squad for Mexico. Is this the time to get him an appearance here? Just thinking about the third game in Mexico, kind of locking things up. Is there any clamoring for Meme Ochoa to perform at this World Cup, or is it just kind of like a consolation thing at this point, given his age?
I mean, I would love to see it just to kind of get like a last go around. I hope they start him or at least have him in for some time in the next game. That would be really cool to see. Obviously, growing up and watching the Mexico soccer team, he was always there, and he's still here. So, love that. It's kind of, I mean, under the circumstances that he has to be called up, obviously sucks, but he's kind of inevitable, I think, and I'm okay with that. So.
Excellent. And what do you make of Mexico's performances so far against South Africa, Czechia? Is there anything to be desired to be sure? The South Korea to be sure, right?
Yeah. The game against South Korea wasn't great. I feel like the energy wasn't really there, and especially in the first half. Kind of just felt like they didn't really want it. Obviously, that changed in the second. Like, had awesome moments.
That gift goal by the goalie as well.
Yeah, the save. Yeah. So I'm like cautiously optimistic. Obviously, I don't think we're gonna win, but however, as far as they can go, that's good with me.
All right. Jackie Contreras, thank you for joining us. She's on Twitter at Jackie Digital. You can check out her work, obviously, as the legacy season gets fired back up, and I'm sure you'll be weighing in with some observations on Mexico's chances and all the other wild sights from this World Cup. George, appreciate you. See, because that's where the real soccer knowledge comes in on this side of the program. But Jackie, thank you for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me.
Have a good afternoon. All right. There we go. And as I said, you can follow Jackie at Jackie Digital. Cool to link up with her. I've been enjoying her coverage this year, and we're excited to get to some more legacy games. See what Lily Reel's all about.
It's a great interview as well too. It's good to talk to other soccer heads, and as Hispanics, we kind of have multiple rooting interests as well. So it's good to know that where her allegiances lie. Obviously with Daddy, and I kind of raised the kids to root for every Hispanic team but Mexico, just to let her know if she's still on the line. My goodness. No, friendly rivalry.
I was going to ask you, George, how that works, because of course that's not my household. So you guys kind of coming from that part of the world. Any of those teams,
Puerto
though,
Rico and Mexico,
other than okay,
more so than U.S. Mexico as well, which is also a rival. So
yeah,
I try to teach my boy no, we don't root for that side over there. But he's like, they speak Spanish. I was like, I know, yeah, but no, every other country that speaks Spanish, we root for.
Otherwise, we're okay with those guys.
Yes,
wow,
yes.
wow.
No, hey, God bless Mexico. They are a good team, and they're the class of CONCACAF, to be sure. We're chasing forever Mexico, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of agree with Jackie as well too. They're a little under desirable Mexico. The first couple go-arounds, I would say. South Africa, kind of a sloppy game, and then South Korea. It was really a tight game all the way through. It should have ended in a draw, but the goalie gift goal.
George,
what can you do?
Do you and yeah, I watched some of that too, and there was just some wild, from a goaltender's perspective, there was some wild stuff going on in that game. With it being a knockout or a round of 32, I mean, this to me just gets more dicey, where you could have some just weird stuff happen that you wouldn't otherwise happen at previous World Cups. You got more teams in the fray, and thus more of a chance of a crazy upset happening.
Yeah, more to get to on the other side, to be sure. But I would say, the third place teams advancing, 8 of them. I think it's a little bit too expanded.
Yeah.
But there's some pros and cons with it too. I would say, like the Scotland-Haiti game, that's not a game that we get if we don't have this expanded tournament. I thought that was one of the games of the tournament, though, in Foxborough, that first one. But then you have teams like Curacao or I don't know, Tunisia, not that good. Qatar. Yeah, so they're teams that shouldn't be sniffing this tournament, but it also might benefit the United States on the back end, because the round of 32 and them winning Group D is going to bode well for them. It conceivably for the next round and beyond. It sounds like a good path to the quarterfinals that we could touch on.
Yeah, definitely. So we'll pick up a little more World Cup talk. I want to pick George's brain. Obviously, we picked Jackie's brain a little bit, and you, because when does this happen? Really, it's been 32 years since we've had the World Cup in North America, in the United States, and I remember, the bleachers of Foxborough glistening in the sun and being filled up with suntanned bodies in the summer of 1994. And here we are back again, a completely different look there. But we'll talk a little bit about all of the surprises, all of the dynamics from the World Cup. And if you got thoughts, join us at 617-779-0985. Sean Sylver here with you till 5.
Boston Boston's home for sports. 98. It all happens here. 98.5 The Sports Hub.
They had a good performance today. Pochettino did good, putting two strikers, doing the high pressure up and forcing Australia throwing the long balls. And to be honest, Australia was never a threat today. And I said it before. Whatever happened before the World Cup is important what happens now. Now is the momentum they have. If you didn't believe before, I will repeat. Start believing. They have the country behind them. And when you have this support, it's difficult to beat you. And that is what they need. And they just need to continue.
I was like trying to really get into soccer that year. Some of the stories were very compelling. I mean, I fell in love with Dennis Bergkamp in the Netherlands there. He had one of the crazy all-time goals in that World Cup. Just often just an amazing touch on a long bomb that he corralled and scored. There was a Michael Owen goal, I remember that year for England, where everyone was like, oh, this is going to be the next big thing. You know, you had Ronaldo in the mix and Brazil winning and just
3D graphics in video games.
My son went over to a friend's house, and he's got I don't know what the video game systems are now. I have no idea what volume of Xbox or PlayStation we're on. He had Xbox, whatever. They played FIFA. They had a good time. He comes home. He's like, Dad, I played FIFA over at my friend's house. I want to play FIFA. And I was like, all right, well, we got a Super Nintendo. Let me go online here. Let's see.
FIFA 96.
Yeah, I picked up an old copy of FIFA, and he loves it on the SNES.
God bless him. Yeah, I have a retro game nerd right here, the intern for the day, George the third.
Yeah, the boy is in that building. But, the only thing about that is they didn't have the player licensing back then, so the names are made up. So he's like, oh, this guy on Germany scored a hat trick against me. And I was like, who? And I was like, I don't remember that guy. Yeah, they're all made up names. But yeah, it's working. We're soccer wild over at the house, which is fun with kids getting into the game. We do have a call on the line here. Paul in Rhode Island has a little World Cup talk for this afternoon. Paul, how are you?
Mr. Sean with the Y. How you doing, young man?
Hey, it's always nice to talk to you, Paul.
Hey, of course, it's been a while. We are winning with the purpose, but we're winning. It's not how we're winning; it's where we're heading. Okay, because of 20 years of second division team players, U.S., and all the parents that poured money into these academies, took a second mortgage, whatever. It paid off at the end. But you have to understand, we can't fabricate players here in the U.S. We can't. Another thing I wanted to talk about is the agony dive. I call it the agony dive, which many people don't understand. Those aluminum knobs, it's like taking a welder's hammer and hitting you in the ankle or the shin. The front shin, you got padding. On the side or the back. Man, it hurts. It hurts. And it's been exposed that most of them are taking advantage of it, but it does stink, man. It does stink. As far as the NBA, as far as the hockey, they taking advantage. They're copying soccer. Hey, you know what? You are not a good man if you do that, because your team can be vulnerable. Is our U.S. team, and the Scots, I forgot to say about the Scots, all you need is 3 points and a tie, and you're on to the next round, okay? But you have to realize that you are embracing the world in your backyard. And the Scots, whether you have bagpipes at 6:30 in the morning, it's fine with me. Trust me, sure. They spent $15,000 for 2 games at Boston Stadium. I mean, you got to embrace this, man, because you know what? These kids, they did so well. Like I'll say it again, it's not how you're winning with gifts, it's where you're going.
All right, Paul. And then to that point, we want to talk a little bit about where we're going. Yeah, you mentioned the agony dive, right? And you said that these NBA players and NHL players are learned from soccer. I mean, to the point of when we had Jack on from the Labs fan, the soccer players learned from pro wrestlers. I feel like it's all it's all mixed here.
Circle of life, reciprocal.
The circle of life. I mean, was he talking about the He said aluminum knobs. Is he talking about the bottom of the cleat?
Yeah, I'm not. As he elaborated, ultimately, right? He's talking about them getting clubbed, and I guess he was kind of defending the flopping, and I thought he was kind of going to go in on the flopping. So, but a little too much flopping for the liking. I have to kind of decipher, each time, like, okay, that's not a foul, that's not a foul. The refs have been doing a good job. I would say they're kind of in the majority of with swallowing the whistle. It's sadly that's kind of what they've been kind of relegated to do. It's a lot of times somebody's on the floor, but the play was clean. There isn't this interference like in hockey or whatever. I kicked the ball behind you, and then now you're essentially there's this offensive lineman. If I'm not getting around you cleanly and I throw myself on the floor, that's not a foul. Okay. Yeah. The referees will swallow the whistle and they'll say, "Get up." I saw you just throw yourself on the floor. That's not sport.
The NBA refs could learn from the World Cup refs. They certainly could. I think a referees symposium is in order here.
Right, those directives that they do kind of with the NFL every now and then, they need one for the NBA and kind of overhaul this technical foul flopping system and assess them, even if they have to go back and retroactively assess them, kind of the way they adjudicate kind of flagrants, non-flagrants the day after or whatever. Yeah. They should be able to do the same in the NBA and hit them in the wallet. Obviously with more technical fouls and whatever escalators, you're going to get a suspension, the Rasheed Wallace rule and stuff. So
because it is tough to do it in the moment, and you want the penalty. The obviously the best way would be for the penalty to hurt the NBA, of course, to hurt them immediately in the flow of the game.
Right, but you can get them after the fact.
But if you do it after the fact, then you can hurt the flow of the game by suspending them, right?
Right.
And
the shame. Ultimately we got to shame these guys into you know what you did. It was Bush League. You got the ref to buy in on it. Now, if you should be able to challenge that as well too. If you see that it's a flop, and then go ahead and then reassess the foul, and then get the technical onto the flopper for the embellishment. I would love to see it.
You could put a whole team of people to work. Bolster the economy here. Get some good American jobs reviewing flopping videos.
I'm about the integrity.
That's not an AI thing right there. That's a subjective call. So we got to have real humans doing this, and furthermore. Oh gosh, I lost my point that I was going to make.
Well, it's okay.
But I thought it was brilliant. What I had in my head.
To Paul's point as well. To a great call. He was all over the place. But us as a host country, to be co-hosting with Canada and Mexico, I've been loving the vibes. The Scots over here in Boston, in particular, my goodness, reminding us to have a good time, get out and just live life. The Norwegians with the rowing, even just different nations. Congo, they scored that first goal.
Yeah,
they went nuts.
Things were hyped for Congo.
The dancing, and I'm with that as well. The Haitians as well over here in Boston.
Yeah.
And I am just loving the different countries getting together, celebrating. I thought, sadly, that would be kind of hampered. I'm glad that I was way off on that. We've been able to enjoy the country as a whole, all three countries, and us as hosts, we not everything has to be bad, So we're able to get this, and the tournament's been going better than advertised. I would say to the point of the expanded tournament, it's kind of a give and take. I don't want to see. The Curaçaos of the world get blown out by Germany 7-1, but that Scotland-Haiti matchup, to go back to that one, or just other fringe teams that they kind of give you an even matchup. So even though that they have no chance in advancing and competing all the way to the end, just mano a mano, it's giving you good soccer to sink your teeth into.
Yeah, I mean, even when goalies standing on their head has been a huge theme so far of the tournament. And even when an deep underdog team gets an early goal against the favorite, and maybe it's called back because of an offside, but just the fact that for a split second there was that hope and that feeling, and their fans get to freak out and celebrate. It's, I don't know, I was going to ask you this question, can you stomach the deep field and the fact that there are going to be some blowouts here, maybe more prone to blowouts with this tournament format than we were with the previous one? If you are getting those just really cool stories, like you mentioned when we were talking in the hallway, the Cape Verde goalie is basically a national hero at this point.
That's right. They got his mom over here for the second game, and I'm assuming the third as well. I have to be like a fence sitter here to be sure. I ultimately don't like it if I have to pick a spot.
Yeah.
I'm a more fan of the competitive game. So if you could narrow the field, then obviously we're not diluting the product the way that we've seen. So I think that a lot of these group play matchups, they leave a lot to be desired.
Sure.
But it is good to see the more the merrier, kind of what Jackie was talking about. I can't complain with if you're in love with the sport, and inevitably you do get a good and even matchup, which is all we want to see, competitive soccer. But it's tough because I'm gauging the U.S. right now. I want to be in love with it. To be sure, the Paraguay game should be regarded as a good game.
Yeah.
I kind of double checked with
sure.
resources to see did we look that good, or is Paraguay that bad? And they were like, no, Paraguay's okay. They beat Argentina, Uruguay, Brazil in qualifiers. They went on like a big streak in terms of being unbeaten. So I was like, oh, this is okay.
Quality win.
Too good to be true, though, is where I am. I would say in the Australia game as well, I thought that the Australians, they had a little bit more opportunities that I thought we should have been a little bit more dominant, even though we did dominate the ball. It's a lot to be desired still. So we'll see in this Turkey game, and then ultimately, I don't know if the U.S. will be tested until after they've reached a quarterfinal. Sadly, it looks like we'll be matched up with the third-place team. Right now, they're saying Bosnia. Bosnia is kind of like this okay-ish team, so they might be competitive. I would say that's probably going to be the most competitive game that we've seen thus far for the U.S. So it's just a crazy catch-22. You haven't been challenged really out of group play. But that's a credit to the USMNT. I would say that they've kind of turned things around, and seeing is going to have to be believing, and we're going to have to be believers here. Like Ibrahimovic had said, we're going to have to get on this USMNT bandwagon. Let's go.
Man, it's crazy. I mean, I don't know. For me, I'll take it as it comes here. But you look at it, and maybe this deeper field, and the fact that you come out on a sugar high in your first match, right, and you score 3 goals in the first half. And you kind of coast from there. They haven't been as impressive, I don't think, since that opening half burst. But you've got the Turkey game, you've got potentially like a Bosnia matchup in the next stage,
round of 32.
and those in the round of 32, and those are just reps to me. Like hopefully you don't get bounced by Bosnia. I mean, you could. But those are reps to prep you for a real legitimate quarterfinal opponent, which is not something you've been able to get past, right, in the past. So anything can happen in this tournament, and if you just set yourself up, who knows, with injuries, maybe your quarterfinal opponent has a key injury, and then maybe you're talking about being in the next round.
Celtics path of 2024, right?
Sure. So
I'll take it.
Just the fact that anything can happen right now, like we're seeing this huge groundswell of interest, and I'm no soccer head for sure. Like I appreciate going and watching the Legacy. I occasionally, before the Revs were on Apple TV, I definitely watched them a whole lot more. But in world soccer, no, I don't really follow. But I watch international play to a fair degree, and it's just kind of like this is so cool. I'm a soccer novice, but I'm just enjoying really everything about it. I'm enjoying hearing my friends, talk about what a great time they're having watching it, enjoying my kid watching it. So it's it's an every 4 years thing, like the Olympics to a degree here, where you can get in on this and you can go hard on it for the next few weeks. So we'll see where it all lands. I'm willing to be surprised, as my cousin, who's an ER nurse, says. I go through life with low expectations, so when there's a pleasant surprise, I feel really good about it.
It's good life advice, I would say. We gotta couch our expectations, but it's a historical team. It's only the third time they've won a group out of group play,
Yeah.
so it's gonna be a fun 2 weeks leading up to when we get into semifinals and that part of the bracket.
All right, Sean Sylver, George Sepulveda here, talking a little World Cup, and we'll talk to you about whatever. We got one more segment here. We're out of here at 5. So if you want to jump on with us, 617-779-0985. This show is cruised. We got one more segment coming up on the Sports Hub.
Boston's home for sports. 90. sports, yeah, we got that covered. 98.5 The Sports Hub.
The Sports Hub. Father's Day weekend. I'm a father. George is a father. We're going to be celebrating tomorrow. Maybe some of you out there are fathers too. This has been a very kind of all over the place program, and it's just the way that I like it. And when we come back all together at the end and it all rounds into form, we talk about Father's Day. You got any good plans, George?
I would say, right, leave me alone, right? The easiest thing to say, but I kind of I put my foot in my mouth. I got the kids to go. We're gonna go to a matinee, Toy Story 5, and I'll bring the whole kit and caboodle and feel good about it, and good daddy stuff. We'll be nice and quiet for and probably sneak in some snacks or something to be extra cheap. But But the real Father's Day gift, and shout out to the brother David, Connecticut. He's been wanting to get the brothers together, and I appreciate him for that. He did it successfully. The Red Sox play the Yankees. The Red Sox to get on a downer, and that's why we avoided them for the 3 hours to be sure. But next Sunday, I'm going to see Red Sox Yankees at Fenway Sunday Night Baseball with the brothers. Good stuff.
Awesome.
They are Yankee fan. Well, the middle one is a Yankee fan, but we don't pay too much mind to that. He's kind of a bandwagon kind of. We have family from New York, but I would consider him bandwagon because he was not raised that way.
Got it. Interesting.
Interesting
how we all arrive where we are, right?
What is going on with the Sylver Fox over this next weekend?
I got no idea what is planned for me tomorrow. I have no clue.
The kids come home from a grade school. They give you any gifts that if they are still
my gosh, yeah. My daughter, she was so excited. She made a coaster and like a clay, like pottery coaster, and
what's crazy?
Painted it.
Things like that are just irreplaceable.
Yeah, that's I already got that out on the end table in the living room. Yeah. Where I can keep my cold drink. And yes, irreplaceable. Hopefully it does not get knocked over by some kid like kicking a soccer ball in the house or one of those things.
Things that happen when daddy's away from home.
Yeah, they could be their own so even when I'm in the house sometimes, just like, what are you doing? We have rules about that. But yeah, no, my son hasn't presented me with anything yet, but that's all good.
Well, I don't blame him. It's one of the most underrepresented holidays, and we don't complain about it. So that's
well, no, I wasn't necessarily getting onto that. I think my daughter was so excited. Like, she left her preschool on Thursday, and she was just like, Daddy, I have this thing for you for Father's Day, and I want to give it to you now. I don't want to wait. And I was just like, well, okay. So any and all measures of appreciation, like, I mean, geez, my kids are 8 and 5, like, just whatever they're just taking time to be themselves and show me a little love, like that's where it is.
Let you sleep in, breakfast in bed type thing.
Yeah, no, I'll be. I gotta edit. I gotta edit my podcast for Monday posting. So I think tomorrow morning I'm gonna get up early.
Nice, cracked rear view. That's right.
Yeah, there we go. Like I said, I won't promote it, but George will. He put the penny out there on Facebook.
That's right.
But yeah, I gotta do that. Got some yard work to do, but I'm just happy being around them. I'm happy seeing, and now I kind of see, like, in my own dad's eyes too, like, I was an only child growing up. I'm also adopted, so I have a number of siblings, but grew up an only child with my folks, and just kind of seeing my dad's interest in everything I did, just a keen interest. Now I see that with my own kids, and just soaking up all the stuff that they're discovering and getting good at, and their skills and talents as they develop. That's the greatest gift year round, for sure.
I would say so as well. Nothing like being a father. I would say, seeing the kids just eat and breathe, that to me just fills my soul with warmth and just a simple kind of thing. So.
Yeah, man. No, I get a little emotional thinking about it sometimes, but that's okay. On this on this high holiday here.
That's right. It should be one of the holiest of holidays. That's right.
Seriously. And we were thinking, just kind of kicking around. I'm not going to get into it with any depth, but great like father-son combos, right, in sports. And I was thinking about Boston sports, and yeah, some certainly come to mind, right? But Rick and Dick Hoyt running the marathon, the ultimate example there, just of
Shout
a father's
out to the Hoyts.
Father's love.
Yes, good people.
An all-timer right there. Just the amount of goodwill that obviously through their efforts rubbed off on others too. Just totally cool. But yeah, I think we'll end it there for this Saturday hangout. We'll hopefully do it again soon. It's been a pleasure to hang with you.
Rocky Johnson, Rocky Maivia.
Yes. We touched on wrestling today. Shout out to Jack from the Laps Fan for joining us. Shout out to Jackie for Musket Fire. Her coverage has been great too on the soccer. And man, like I'm psyched to see what tomorrow brings. And of course, when you're hanging out with George, he's got the stuff. He's got the stuff just lodged in his brain here. He's gonna hit on this beat or that beat. Unleash the dragon. So good. Oh, I'm Sean Sylver. He's George Sepulveda. Hey, enjoy the rest of the World Cup, my friend. And everybody enjoy your weekend here at 98.5 The Sports Hub. Happy Father's Day.